Welcome to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. Today, let's talk about underestimating your potential. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. My name is Kale Houser, and I wanted to ask you, have you thought about, or at least thought about recently, your potential? Have you thought about what you are capable of? Maybe in the form of physical appearance, in your diet, in your fitness, maybe in the form of how much income you can make, how much you can learn or become an expert in your field about, how many customers you can serve, how high your company can grow on the Forbes top 100, 500, 1,000 list. There's all types of things that we can measure and look to for our potential. And I want to ask you if you have recently looked at that and what your mindset looks like as far as in regards to your potential. Do you have a mindset to allow yourself to think beyond what's right in front of you, to think beyond the norm or the common path that somebody in your industry may take or may be taking? Or have you gotten to the point that you are thinking outside the box? You're thinking, well, I know most people in my industry that run this type of business, they make, $1 million a year in revenue, right? Minus expenses and all that kind of stuff. And maybe they take home $100,000 as their paycheck for being the business owner. But I know if I've got the potential, I've got the marketing plan, I've got the drive and the everything, the commitment to turn this business, I don't know how maybe, but I know I've got the ability and the potential to make it a 10 million a year business, 100 million, whatever that may be for you. Have you thought about that recently? Or are you just, because what happens when we don't think about that, what our potential is, and we strive and we make goals that match that potential, is we kind of get stuck and we get only rutted in this kind of groove that we find ourselves in the form of, just meeting the next task, like doing the next thing required to stay afloat and all those types of things. And we lose that ability to work and strive towards our potential. And this is coming up because I listened to this super fascinating, I think it was a TED Talk actually by Tom, and it's Bellew, I think it is, or Bellew. I always forget how you pronounce his last name. He's one of these really famous guys. He actually developed and sold Quest nutrition bars for like a gazillion dollars. And now he does all kinds of other things. He's got a really successful podcast and things of that nature. But he was talking about this, I want to say it was a poll or something they were doing for people of, hey, okay, you've got this genie that you found, you rub the lamp and you can ask for anything you want, like other than, curing cancer, world peace, things like that nature. He said the only requirement was it had to be for you, like you had to wish for something for yourself, and it couldn't be something like, along those lines of curing world hunger, things of that nature. And he said they were getting the results back, and after they had interviewed or polled, I want to say it was like 300 plus people, which granted isn't a huge sample size depending on where it is you're getting these samples from and what demographic people are and all those types of things. But he said he was so surprised by the results that he actually questioned if they were doing it wrong, if they were somehow leading people to a certain answer, because he said the large propensity of people in their answer was all the same. And can you guess what that was? Or maybe you've seen this talk or seen one of his reels or his clips about it. He said the large propensity of people said, I would wish for, $1 million. And he's like, what? How is this even possible? It's like, you cannot even buy a house in Los Angeles for $1 million, like a shed. Like, how are people so limited in their beliefs and their mindset where they still value $1 million as something that is impossible to get, something that only a genie can grant you? He's like, no one wished for a bubble gun that anything they pointed it at would turn it to gold, or no one wished for, more wishes, or no one wished for like things that would actually make your life better in a real tangible way forever. No, they went towards that age-old, like, I want to be a millionaire. And he said it was so fascinating because there are two aspects of that. One is people still think $1 million is a lot of money. And on one hand, it is a lot of money. $1 million, no joke, is a lot of money. but its value of what it will buy you today has significantly decreased over time. Can we all agree on that? I think we can all agree on that. There was a time where average houses, especially when I was younger, I want to say the house that my parents bought that we moved into in the third grade, I want to say it was like $80,000 or something like that. And it was a big, nice house. It wasn't a mansion on the lake or anything like that, but it was a nice house in a nice neighborhood in a nice town. I went to nice, good schools and all those types of things. And it was $80,000. $1 million is still $1 million. But of course, wages were less, food was less, everything was less, gas was less, cars were less, all those things. But if you are still thinking that $1 million is a lot of money in the form of its value and what it will get for you today, you're delusional. In most parts of the country, yes, it will buy you a house and you'll have some leftover money to, probably buy a nice car and all those things and live for a while. But there are places like, New York, Miami, probably Nashville now, Houston, Dallas, different places like that, Seattle for sure, San Francisco, well, most of California, where that $1 million will barely get you a regular, quote unquote, regular house. I mean, you're not talking a mansion by any stretch of the imagination. So it's really fascinating to see that people in general, again, because this is what we're taught and this is what we hear all the time on TV and, I found $1 million, right? Because we never equate the value of something to what it actually is. Well, we just see that number, which is a big number. $1 million of anything is a big thing. But when you disassociate the value, then that number itself is what is impossible to achieve. When you disassociate the value of that thing. And the second part of it is the limiting belief of it's impossible to get. Not that it's a big number, but that for, you and me, John Doe and Jane Doe, every average everyday American citizens, that the thought of getting $1 million, especially in a short period of time, because most of us will make $1 million over the course of our careers. Even if you're working for $50,000 a year, you will work until you get $1 million. It may take you 20 years, but you'll get there. But this concept of having $1 million and kind of the assumption of it's, disposable income, it's something that you can have and use right away, and you don't need it necessarily to feed your family or anything of that nature. But the thought is that it's such an impossible amount to get is so scary because it shows the limiting mindset of the person that thinks that. Because it's not impossible. Why is it totally acceptable to get $1 million in 20 years? Well, why isn't it acceptable to get $10 million in 20 years? Why isn't it acceptable to get $1 million in 20 months, 2 months? It's all just a matter of finding the right vehicle, applying the right effort and pressure, and then seeing those results. Because it's not like it hasn't been done before. It's not like you haven't had the examples to follow and people that have done it over and over and over, literally thousands of people are millionaires. There are more millionaires made every day than anything else. Don't quote me on that, but you get the point that I'm making. It happens every day, all the time. And not only to existing millionaires that compound their millions, but it happens to new millionaires every day. I at one point I'd looked up, and it was a unbelievably large number of new millionaires that are made in America every day. Why do we still have this limiting belief? Why do we still have this concept in our brain that it is such a big number that it is so impossible to achieve for us, for you, for me as average everyday people, that only a genie would be able to grant us this outlandish wish? And I would encourage you, beyond just if you think that $1 million is unattainable in your, in a short period of time or is unattainable for your business, I would challenge you. How can you change that mindset of yours to be from being limiting, oh wow, to oh, why not 10 million? Because that was the other thing that surprised Tom during his talk. He's like, if you can ask for $1 million, why wouldn't you ask for 10 million? Why wouldn't you ask for $1 billion? Right? Certainly, if you were in that position, a genie, $1 billion would be a lot better and a lot more impactful to your life than $1 million. especially in today's day and age, right? That makes sense. But it was such a fascinating thing, and I know, our pop culture and movies play into that a lot because we, are constantly bombarded with that of like, oh, $1 million, this and this and this and that. It's very rare that you get the, $100 million or $1 billion type of thing, because that's just so outlandish, right? Something that is beyond impossible, even though, again, it's been done time and time and time and time and time again. There are like thousands of examples where people have sold their companies for $100 million. There are people have sold their companies for over $1 billion. There are multiple multi-billion-dollar valuation companies in the United States. So it's not that it can't be done. It's that either you don't think you can do it, whether you don't have the skills or whatever is your limiting belief. But the reality is you do. It's been done. The people that have done it are no different than you are, other than they applied themselves. They put forth their skills. They made the connections. They took the risks and made it happen. So I would highly encourage you, think about that. Legitimately, if you had a genie in front of you that said, I grant whatever wish you want, right? It has to be for yourself. What would it be? And how is that thing limited versus what's possible? And that will kind of help you identify what is possible with you, what is possible in your world, what is within the realm of possibility. And now start figuring out, okay, is that truly impossible? Are there other people have done that thing? Are there other people that I can emulate, that I can example? They can become my mentors in the form of even reading their books or following their podcasts, whatever that is. How do you get the information to do the thing that you previously thought was impossible? But when you kind of wake up and you look around and you realize this isn't impossible, I just need to figure out how to do it and why I should want to do it. All those types of things certainly go into it. So I hope that makes sense to you. If you haven't, search down Tom Bilyeu. I may have a link for it in the description that you can click on, but it was a super fascinating talk and an interesting peek into the mindset of, quote unquote, kind of common man, if you will, the workforce, and how we put those own limits on ourselves, even when given this opportunity that is, admittedly outlandish in nature in the form of a genie and all that kind of stuff. But it really peeks into that mindset of the limiting beliefs and what is possible or not, and something only a genie could, because it's so crazy and only a genie could grant it. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, please leave a comment. Likes, comments, subscribes are always fantastic. I will talk to you soon, no matter where you're at in the world. Have a fantastic afternoon. Bye.